everybody. It's Grandpa Ken, your friend and everybody's grandpa. Listen, we've got a fun one today, I hope as always, but today it's I want you to meet Curious George. If you haven't heard the whole story, you really will like this. Get ready, okay? It's just Curious George. Not any adventure or anything the way we normally do, huh? This is George. He lived in Africa. He was very happy. But he had one fault. What do you think that one fault was, kiddos? See him hanging in the jungle? He was too curious. Yeah. One day, George saw a man. He had on a large yellow straw hat. What a nice little monkey, he thought. I would like to take him home with me, the man with the yellow straw hat said. The man put his hat on the ground, and of course, George was curious. He came down from the tree to look at the large yellow hat. Well, that's why he's called Curious George. That hat had been on the man's head. George thought it would be nice to have it on his own head. He picked it up and put it on. The hat covered George's head. He couldn't see. The man picked him up quickly and popped him into a bag. George was caught. Yep, that's how George became George and the man with the yellow hat. On the big ship, things began to happen. The man took off his bag and George sat on a little stool. The man said, "George, I'm going to take you to a big zoo in a big city. You'll like it there. Now run along and play, but don't get into trouble." George promised to be good, but it's easy for little monkeys to forget. See them? They're sitting in their cabin. Yeah, What do you think's going to happen next? On the deck, George found some seagulls. He wondered how they could fly, and of course, he was curious. Finally, he had to try. "Oh no, George, no. It looked easy, but oh goodness, look at kiddos. See what he's getting ready to do? No, never. And first he jumped off, and then he was in the water. "Where's George?" The sailors looked and looked. At last they saw him struggling in the water, almost all tired out. "Oh, George, did you ever do a mistake that time?" "Man overboard!" the sailors cried as they threw him a life belt. George caught it and held on. At last he was safe on board. See, look at they pulled him out. He had all that water in his lungs. That's what happens when you go underwater and you take a deep breath. It fills your lungs, so you got to be careful, kiddos. After that, George was more careful to be a good monkey until at last the long trip was over. George said goodbye to the kind sailors, and he and the man with the yellow hat walked off the ship onto the shore and into the city man's house. Do you think that it will be different, kiddos, if you move from the jungle to a city? After a good meal and a good rest, George felt very tired. See, look at, he's getting into his pajamas. Yeah, he crawled into bed and fell asleep at once. You think monkeys snore? I think so. The next morning, the man telephoned the zoo. George watched him. He was fascinated. Then the man went away. George, of course, was curious. He wanted to telephone too. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. What fun! Kiddos, I know not many of you could maybe not ever seen a dial phone, but that's what he was doing. They would have numbers around, and you put your finger in one dial or 3. So, yep, George could have done that. Ding-a-ling, ding-a-ling. George had telephoned the fire station. The firemen rushed to the telephone. "Hello, hello," they said. but there was no answer. Then they looked for the signal on the big map that showed where the telephone call had come from. They didn't know it was George. They thought it was a real fire. Oh no, George, what have you done? Hurry, hurry, hurry! The firemen jumped onto the fire engines and onto the hook and ladders. Ding dong, ding dong, ding dong. Everyone out of the way. Hurry, hurry. Look at the old equipment they had. Yeah. You've probably seen that stuff in a museum. The firemen rushed into the house. They opened the door. No fire. Only a naughty little monkey. Oh, catch him, they cried. George tried to run away. He almost did, but he got caught in the telephone wire, and oh, goodness, look at George. Look at all the trouble he has caused. What do you think, Barkley? You'd get in trouble for that. A thin fireman caught one arm, and a fat fireman caught the other arm. You fooled the fire department, they said. We'll have to shut you up where you can't do any more harm. They took him away and shut him up in prison. Oh, no. Can you imagine poor little George? He's in a prison. George wanted to get out, and he climbed up the window to try the bars, but of course he couldn't. Just then the watchman came in. He got on the wooden bed to catch George, but the watchman was too big and heavy. The bed tipped over, and the watchman fell over. And as quick as lightning, George ran out the open door. You betcha, he just shot out like crazy. He hurried through the building and out to the roof, and then he was lucky to be a monkey. Out he walked on the telephone wires, quickly and quietly over the guard's head. George walked away. He was free. Oh, look at, he's free again. Down in the street, outside the prison wall, stood a balloon man. A little girl bought a balloon for her brother. George watched. He was curious again. He felt he must have a bright red balloon. He reached over and tried to help himself. But what do you think's going to happen, kiddos? This little guy sure gets himself in trouble by not thinking. But he's a monkey. You can think. Instead of one balloon, the whole bunch broke off loose in an instant, and the wind whisked them all away. And with them went George, holding tight with both hands. Look at, kiddos. Wouldn't that be scary? Wouldn't it be scary? Up, up, up. He said higher and higher, and the houses looked like toy houses and the people like dolls. George was frightened. He held on very tight. See? If you've ever flown in an airplane, you look down as you fly over the city, you knew. At first the wind blew in great gusts. Then it quieted. And finally it stopped blowing altogether. George was very tired. Down, down he went. Bump on the top of a traffic light. Everyone was surprised, and the traffic got all mixed up. George didn't know what to do. And then he heard someone call, "George!" He looked down and saw his friend, the man with the big yellow hat. Oh, look at all the trouble he caused in traffic, kiddos. Have you ever been in that type of a traffic jam? George was very happy. The man was happy too. George slid down the post, and the man with the big yellow hat put him under his arm, and then he paid the balloon man for all the balloons. And then George and the man climbed into the car, and at last away they went. See? His nice big car, and at last away they went. Do you know? To the zoo. What a nice place for George to live. But as we all know, that isn't how the story goes. So come on back. That's just your Meet George. Wait till you see what he does next, because he goes home with the man because he misses him. So come on back. It's Grandpa Ken reading time. You all be safe. Always, always listen to your adults. Have a great day, kiddos, and thank you.